Hello, welcome to another video and welcome to my June wrap up. So I'm gonna go through these fairly quick fire. I read a decent amount in June. I read 15 books. So yeah, I'm basically just gonna rush through them. Oh, I should also say I read 15 books plus 2 DNFs. I had a range of ratings, so obviously 2 DNFs. My lowest rated book that I finished this month was a 2.5 star. My highest rated was a 5 star, but I mainly seemed to get 3.5 and 4 stars this month, which is fine. So we're going to, how am I going to do this? I've just got books all over the place. We're going to start with the DNFs. So this month I DNF'd Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. So I started reading, oh hey Bella, started reading this one for a vlog, and in my mind I thought this was a YA contemporary along similar kind of lines to All the Boys I Loved Before, like by Jenny Han. It is not. It is an adult kind of multi-generational story. I would still say it falls under like the contemporary genre rather than like literary, but it was heavier than I was wanting to read, so I do intend to pick it up again. I finished here at chapter 7. My bookmark is still in there, 41 pages in, but yeah, I'm not in the mood to read this right now. But again, I haven't DNF'd it forever. I think I might pick it up again, but we will see. And the other book that I DNF'd this month was Life, the Universe and Everything by Douglas Adams. I don't actually know where I got up to in this, about 30 pages I think, and I just was confused and bored. Maybe bored's not the right word. Confused and just not really engaged enough to want to unconfuse myself. This one is book 3 in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. So I have now DNF'd that series as well, which is fine. Yeah, I just wasn't massively feeling this one. While we're on that kind of note, let's start at the bottom and work our way up, shall we? So my 2.5 star for the month was A Curse of Blood and Wolves by Melissa McTernan. This one came last month in the Fairy Lit Romantasy box. I read it for my book box battle. The first chapter intrigued me and I was like, yes, I'm going to read this. And it started off decent and it just got worse and worse. I honestly now, a month on, because this is the first book of the month that I read, I can't remember what I disliked about it other than I was just bored. I just didn't like it. Yeah, this one will be being unhauled now, which is a shame because it is very, very pretty, but it just wasn't for me. I don't think I'm a wolf person, and this is not changing my mind. But saying that, there are some wolf books, so like Bride by Ali Hazelwood and Wolf Song by TJ Klune, are wolf shifter books that I really want to read, but I'm just not sure I'm a wolfy person. But yeah, Curse of Blood and Wolves did not work for me, and I will link the vlog where I read it as well because I don't remember it. So my only 3 star of the month was Restaurant at the End of the Universe by Douglas Adams. So again, this one is the sequel to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I read book 1 years ago. I was continuing the series, and again, I will link the vlog where I read this one. This one I enjoyed. Again, gave it 3 stars. It's fine. I continued to Life of the Universe and DNF the series. Yeah, I found the whimsy and the weirdness in this one I could deal with, but the whimsy and the weirdness in Life of the Universe, it got too much. Not for me. I'm out. I'm then going to move on to my stack of 3.5 stars. So I'm going to start off with Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This one I listened to on audiobook, and I do wonder if that impacted my enjoyment because I don't really remember anything about this book. I was listening to it as I was going up to London, so it was about a 4-hour coach journey. You look, Don't at me. Okay. The coach cost like 50 quid return. The train was about 250 quid one way. So I'm getting the coach. Anywho, so I was listening to some on Coach Journey and I fell asleep a few times. But I felt like, you know, when you're kind of sleeping in a vehicle, you're not really in like a deep sleep. So I felt like I still kind of was listening to it, but I clearly missed things because I don't really know what happened in this book. I did enjoy it, and I think the audiobook is really well done. But I feel like it was too long. I feel like I kept on thinking, oh, we're at the end of a story arc, but I'm only 20% of the way through the book. And it felt to me like there were 4 or 5 different story arcs in this book, which just was a bit much. So I can't really tell you the plot of Daughter of No Worlds because I don't really know. Other than we followed our character whose name begins with T and I've forgotten what it is. And she was a slave, I think. I think she bought herself out of slavery, but then killed the man who owned her. And then something to do with magic. I don't know if she was magic in the first place or not, because again, I missed that. And then there was some sort of war. And again, I'm not 100% sure where that came from. So I am going to continue this series, but I might not audiobook them anymore because I don't think I fully understand what was going on. So continuing on my 3.5 stars. South Asian Folktales, Myths and Legends by Sarah Shafi. So this one I read for a recent vlog. I enjoyed it. It was fine. It's a series of short stories and I really have nothing else to say about it other than it's a short story collection. It's the thing with short story collections. There'll be hits, there'll be misses. And because all of the stories, this is middle grade as well, so all of the stories are about less than 10 pages long. There were ones that I enjoyed, but there was nothing that was sort of stand out and there was nothing that sort of, you know, like powered the book through. So it was fine. It was a solid okay. We then have Starvaker by Andrew Michael Hurley. So this one, me and some friends from work persuaded our friend Jen to read this book to us. So every day she would leave a 10-minute voice note with reading part of Starvaker, which was such a lovely way to read this book, honestly. If you've never had somebody read to you, especially like as an adult, it's lovely and I really enjoyed it. I gave the book 3.5 stars and I still don't know if that's a fair rating or not, because I don't know if I enjoyed this book or not. This book, as it was going, I was like, okay, this is weird, but I don't really know what the horror is. And then when it got to the end, I literally replied and was like, what? How can it end there? Like, what is going on? And I don't really know what happened in the book. And it's just so weird. So, can I explain this book? Don't know. We're following a couple, Richard and Juliet, and their son Ewan has died. And I think he died like a few months ago or a year ago. He died a while ago. And they live at a place called Starvaker, and the field like out back has nothing that grows in it and nothing that lives in it. There's a stump of an old tree, but there's like nothing grows there. There's not even like bugs in this field. And Richard finds a skeleton of a hare, and for some reason he decides to bring it back to the house and like put it back together. This hare then comes to life. Juliet believes that she is seeing Ewan, and sort of this woman comes and is sort of does like a bit of like a seance to try and put Ewan's soul to rest. And then there's this other kind of flashbacks of when Ewan was alive and he was a pretty terrifying child, because he was regularly being told by this being called Jack Grey to do these like horrible things. So like he stabbed a pony in the eye and he was like tried to like kill someone, and this is all this being Jack Grey told him to do it. And yeah, these three threads sort of come together somehow. Yeah, honestly, I can't really tell you what this book is about. I don't know if I enjoyed it or not. It was weird, and that's really all I've got to say about it. So then we've got... So next we get on to my pile of Jacqueline Wilsons. So again, I will link my vlog up here somewhere where I read my Jacqueline Wilson books. These ones are all books that I'm calling contemporaries that I hadn't read before. So they're set in our time. Basically, Jacqueline Wilson writes either contemporary or historical, typically like middle grade. So these ones are contemporary. They are all set, I believe, like early 2000s. But we'll go through them anyway. And these are the ones that I hadn't read as a child. So in May, I read books that I read growing up, and I think I gave them all 5 stars. These ones I hadn't read before. So I don't know whether it's just sort of bias because I'd read the other ones as a kid, and so I had memories associated with them, or what. But yeah, I didn't enjoy the books quite so much this time. So we've got Best Friends. This one follows Alice. So we're following Alice and Gemma. Alice has moved to Scotland, and her mum, who is just not a very nice woman, has basically said that she needs to cut ties with Gemma now. Now they've moved away, she no longer wants Alice to associate with Gemma. And we're following this from Gemma's point of view of how she's having to like cope with finding new friends, making new friends, and how it kind of the jealousy, I suppose, of seeing Alice starting a new life and making new friends in Scotland. Just gonna move the cat away. This one was okay, but I felt like it didn't really give me anything. We then have got Cookie. And one thing I will actually say about this whole selection of Jacqueline Wilson books is I felt like, whereas the books that I read as a child, one of the main themes was abandoned children and like adoption. Here this all seemed to be either children growing up in like relative poverty, single parents, bad parents, I'm gonna say, like abusive parents. And I felt like, whereas the books that I remember growing up all ended in like with kind of like a note of hopefulness, these ones seem to end with a note of hopelessness, or some of them did. So Cookie follows Beauty Cookson, and she has always been kind of like mousy, not the prettiest girl, not the most bubbly girl, and her dad is horrible, again, very, very abusive, like physically abusive to his mum. He slaps her in the book on page. He is financially abusive to her. He doesn't allow her own money, doesn't allow her to work. Her mother, obviously this is. He is emotionally abusive to both Cookie, like to both Beauty and her mum. Just a really, really horrible person. And like the girls at school that Beauty goes to all bully her. They all call her ugly because her name's Beauty and she's not. Which again, like the fact that her father also says that she's just squat and ugly, and he's horrible. So this follows Beauty and kind of like her struggling with this abusive parent, and then she and her mum managed to get away from the situation. And this one did have a sense of hopefulness in it, with her mum being able to kind of like come out of her shell a little bit and kind of become her own woman again. But yeah, this one I felt like I wanted the father to have a little bit more, like, I felt he never paid for his behaviour, and I wanted him to get his comeuppance, basically. I can't think what word I'm really looking for, but I felt like, yeah, he kind of walked away scot-free and everyone was okay with that, and that again made me feel a little bit flat. And then my last 3.5 Jacqueline Wilson was the Diamond Girls. So this follows a group, 4 sisters. So we have got, can't remember their names, Dixie, Rochelle, Jude and Martine. Their mother is pregnant with their 5th sibling, and she finds the council give her a new house because the 2-bedroom flat they're currently in isn't going to be big enough anymore. Again, very abusive mother. So she is so emotionally manipulative, particularly towards the oldest daughter, being like, oh, I need you need to come and like live with us so you can look after the child. You're the parent. But yeah, she expects her elder daughters to do all of the child raising of the younger. And anyway, they move into this house and it's an absolute tip. Mother very quickly goes into labour. And so the kids have got to basically fend for themselves. The mother comes back and is weird. It's not, it's kind of postnatal, I guess you kind of maybe call it postnatal like paranoia maybe. But she comes back and she won't let any of the children near the baby. And in this one, the youngest, Dixie, makes friends with a girl across the road who has got abusive parents, well, an abusive mother. She has got Mary. The girl across the road is called Mary, and she's got an incredibly abusive mother who beats her and, you know, won't let her kind of do anything because she's a dirty girl. Things like, you know, she has to eat her crusts, and when she doesn't manage to eat one of her crusts, the mother sticks it in her mouth, holds her nose and like chokes her until she eats. Like, so abusive. And this is one where I felt, again, this sort of hopelessness at the end of it, because again, we see no repercussions for Mary's mother other than, oh, well, she needed help. And there's also no repercussions for the mother of the main characters. It was just, well, you know, at least she didn't physically beat them. Like, no, she was still very, very abusive. So again, I felt like with these two, and also, actually, no, I'll say that in a minute. I'm gonna come back to these two in a second, but I'm gonna go on to my 4 stars, and I want to mention Lily Alone. She's the last of the Jacqueline Wilsons. I liked this book, but my God, did it end on a bum note. So in this one, we again have got a single abusive parent. The mother of 4 children, oldest is 11, then there's twins and a child, like the youngest is 3. And the mother decides to go on holiday with her new boyfriend, who she's only just met, and leaves the kids home alone until she comes back. So Lily, who again is 11, has got to look after the children, who are like 7-year-old twins and a 3-year-old, I think, something like that. And Lily is scared that they're going to be found out, and that she knows that if it's found out that her mum has gone away, she knows that like the police are going to get involved and social services are going to get involved. She's aware of that. So Lily decides, like, when she thinks that her school has found out and her teachers come around, and so she's decided that actually what she and the kids are going to do is go and live in the park. And they spend a couple nights in the park, and then one of the twins breaks her leg and they have to go to hospital and everything kind of falls apart. And this, for me, again, I just felt so sad by the end of this book. But I felt sad for Lily, because I don't feel like the mother got the full kind of repercussions that she should have. But also, I just felt so sad for Lily. You know, she'd kind of lost everything really by the end of this book. Not just her mother, who was, you know, abusive anyway, but still was her mum, but like her siblings as well. And I think, I'm just going to say, with these 3, actually I'm going to throw best friends in here as well, because Alice's mum was horrible. I felt there needed to be more kind of discussions around and repercussions for the parents, who, like I've said, have been abusive throughout. And I don't feel like any of the parents really faced any kind of consequence to their behaviour. It was just sort of kind of acknowledged that, well, they weren't physically beating, so they're okay. And it's like, no, that it's not. It's really not. So yeah, this pile of Jacqueline Wilsons wasn't my favourite. But again, I will link the vlog. Okay, continuing my 4-star books, we've got The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly by Sun Ming Huang. This is such a diddy little book. It's like 130 pages, but it is super, super cute. We're following a hen called Sprout, who has always been living in a cage, laying eggs, until she realises that she's not going to be able to lay any more eggs. The farmers cull her, which means basically they throw her in a pit, but she manages to escape. And she decides she's going to go and live in the wild. All Sprout wants to do is hatch an egg of her own. She finds an egg in a nest, she sits on it, and out hatches baby, who is a duckling. And this book is so cute. Like, it's such a fantastic allegory for family, for love, for friendship, and I had a great time reading this one. And again, it's so short that it's kind of almost hard to rate it because it is so short, but I had a brilliant time with this one. And then I've got The Watchers by A.M. Shine. This one is a horror. Sorry, just got Bella being very, very snuggly. This one is a horror set in Ireland. In these woods, when you go in there, as soon as it is dark, you need to get to the cabin, you need to be inside, or the Watchers will get you. So throughout this, there's this kind of creepy element of what are the Watchers, who are the Watchers. All we know is that they look like humans, but they're not, and that there's no escape. And it's so interesting that, like, it's creepy and it kind of makes you think, and it's a horror that kind of... Bella, can you come and sit on my lap, my darling? It's a horror that's more kind of like creepy and eerie than it is sort of slasher or gory. I would say it's a horror that's not scary, but it does kind of like stick in your head, which I guess is a good sign for a horror. And then moving on to my 4.5 stars. We're going to start off with Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-ju. This is so good. Like, again, I can't really tell you what it's about. We're following Kim Ji-young, who is a woman who grew up in Korea. And we're kind of seeing the different things that sort of, I guess, happened to her growing up in a Korean family, as well as like learning about her mother as well. So things like her mother was sent to work at age 12 to put her brother through school. And it wasn't until she was about 16 that she realised that her brothers going to work were never ever going to be putting her through school. She was never going to be entitled to an education. And we've got things like Kim Ji-young being looked over for promotions at work, for not getting a job because she's a woman, because that means that she will be having a child and that means that she will be leaving. And just the kind of social injustices of the patriarchy, particularly patriarchy in Korea, was really, really interesting. I felt so sorry for Kim Ji-young, but also I felt like it was such an interesting read for me as a Western reader to kind of see how different, well, and it's not necessarily different, but how life is for a woman in South Korea in what I guess would be the early 2000s, born 1982, same age as my sister. But yeah, I had a great time reading this one. We have then got A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. So this one is the first in the second trilogy in the First Law universe. The second trilogy is called The Age of Madness. And this is set about 20 years after the events of the first trilogy, and we are following the children of quite a few of the main players of the first trilogy. So we're following Giselle's son, Glocta's daughter, the Dogman's daughter, and a few other people as well. I had such a great time reading this. The characters were brilliant. While there still was a lot of like death, gore, destruction, it felt kind of more meaningful, I guess, in this one. This one has the backdrop of like an industrial revolution, which again was really interesting. I loved seeing... We had Shivers again, who is honestly probably my favourite character in the series. And yeah, I had a great time reading this one. There was an element that gave me the biggest ick, but it was resolved. It was resolved far too late in my mind. But again, you know, I kind of knew it was always going to happen, even in the first trilogy. I kind of was like, oh, yeah, that's going to happen, isn't it? Ugh, gross. And it did. But if you know, you know. Yeah, had a brilliant time with this one. Really, really great. I did also just realise I tabbed a couple bits on here. I feel like there were some really great conversations about patriarchy in here, which is interesting, written by a man. And there's a lot of talk, because one of the main characters, Ricky, is like a seer, and there was a lot of talk about like predictions and prophecies, and I'm still holding out hope that maybe Logan will come back, because even seeing a body, I don't want him to be dead, and we haven't seen a body, so he's not dead. But yeah, had a brilliant time reading this one. Finally, for my 4.5 stars, I read Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This one I had such a fab time with. It is a And Then There Were None retelling. So some of the twists I knew. So very early on was kind of predicting that something was going to happen, which I was right about, which is the twist of And Then There Were None, if you've read that book. But that wasn't the twist in here. That was like the kind of pre-twist, because the final twist I did not see coming. I did not suspect it. I can see why people would be really annoyed by the final twist, but I had a great time. Loved it. Finally, final book I'm going to talk about while I've still got some voice left is my 5-star of the month, Clanlands by Sam Heughan and Graham McTavish. I read this one on audiobook and I had the best time. The two men narrate it, and they don't actually just read out the book, they're having a conversation. So it's almost like the book is a transcript of what they were saying, rather than they wrote it and then like read it out, if that makes sense. So there's things like, and again, I'm just going to say this, you know, like right at the end, you've got like Graham giving like sort of his not there. Like right at the end, you've got like when Graham gives his acknowledgements, he sort of said this, and it ends up being like, here's to the next time. And Sam's going, you've always got to get the last word, don't you? He's like, well, you did have to get the last word. And that sort of thing, which isn't in the book, of just these sort of little kind of side discussion arguments that they have, was fantastic. And I had a great time. I want to watch Men in Kilts, which is what this book is from. And I might rewatch Outlander as well. But I had a fab time reading this one. So that was my June wrap up. My June wrap up with, oh, these books are heavy, these 15 books. Let me know if you have read any of these ones, what your thoughts were, what your favourite book of the month was. And if you like this video, please do leave a like, subscribe down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!